Got to start out with saying happy birthday to Bruce. He does a great job prepping all of us for some of the media responsibilities that we have. And October birthdays are a good thing. I got my brother-in-law, me, Bruce. I mean, there's a whole line of them. But also just our team in general. I hit on the process last week. The humility in their demeanor and the attacking nature of their approach has been awesome to watch. I know news is out there of like injuries and guys and starting positions and flux, things all in flux of like who's playing at what position, and there's been a lot of moving parts throughout the season. But I just really hats off to all the guys, and their approach has not wavered. The way in which they operate, their humility has not wavered. That's just a sign of guys buying into the culture that Dave brings to this team. And all the guys just, having their vision kind of oriented the right way, right? We're all just trying to accomplish one thing, that's win on Sunday. And that goes for guys that are injured to guys that are in supporting cast to guys that are starting and playing, more snaps than others. So just a hats off to those guys continuing to buy in and week out, and hopefully it leads to a victory on Sunday.
We'll start off with Mike Kay.
Hey, Brad. Good morning.
Morning, Mike.
I guess your opening statement kind of segues into what I was going to ask you about. With all of these moving parts on offense, how has that challenged you and Dave and I guess Goody and some of the other guys in contemplating that week's game plan, and how much does it differ based on who's at left guard or who's starting at running back or who's starting at tight end, and so on?
Yeah, I think we used the whole offseason to gather information about the guys we have. We know we want what we want the system to feel like, what we want to hang our hat on. But then you also, you store in your head, okay, these guys prefer these types of routes at the quarterback position, or the runners. We've talked about it the last couple weeks of Chuba and Rico preferring different things and making sure those things show up in game plans when they're being highlighted. So you couple that with there's things that the defense presents to you that, hey, the game plan needs to steer this direction. But maybe you pick and choose which guys you put in spots to highlight some different elements of what the game plan is for the Buffalo Bills. So we tried to gather as much information we could leading up into a game plan week. And then when it comes to the game plan week, we're very particular into where we're putting certain guys, when we're calling certain plays. And making sure that those guys are excited to hear that play call come through the headset, come out of the quarterback's mouth.
And then at quarterback, Andy obviously is mostly on scout team, but is heavily involved in pretty much everything in the offense, I would assume, in those conversations. How much more comfortable do you think he is in this offense this year as opposed to last year? I know he's been in similar offenses, but how much do you think he is kind of, at least mentally, kind of taking in the system a little bit more?
Yeah, just Will's preparation of all those guys, it's phenomenal to watch. I complimented him on it yesterday as we brought a new body in, this week. And he truly takes a day one approach with all those guys and doesn't skip a step, doesn't skip the same reminder that might seem, boring to a veteran. Who's done it, who's seen it all, that he's going to get that same reminder to make sure that we're not wavering in our approach of understanding what we're trying to do when we're attacking the defense. So really just goes back to Will's approach in the quarterback room. It's a blessing every day to be able to go in there, and trust that he's trying to echo the game plan that we're all piecing together. And you watch him work and you watch him prepare these guys with Mike Bercovici at his side, and those guys don't miss a beat. And then you couple that with we're always listening, right? We're always listening for suggestions. We're always listening for little edits of routes. Hey, I think this might be better. Inspiring kind of communication between the players, but then also letting them bring it to us so we can make sure that they make this game plan come to life every week. And everybody's had their hands in it. We've had, you get a new quarterback in who's played in Buffalo for a couple of days, and we're already asking him questions. He's already getting his hand in it. So I do think there's a comfort level when you involve the guys in the process, but then there's also a foundational piece in which Will provides for that room where those guys are ready to rock.
Alex Zitlow.
Hey, Brad. Good morning, man.
Morning.
The Buffalo Bills, we've heard this all week. Buffalo Bills are 31st in the league in rushing defense. I'm curious, from your position, how much weight do you put in a team statistic like that? Is that something that, as you're preparing, you try to resist and try to look at the players they have and the scheme that they have, or do you actually do put weight in that kind of team statistic?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of ways to win a game, and we want to attack the holes in the defense that we think apply to what we want to emphasize on our offensive schemes. But really, it comes down to, okay, what kind of fronts do they run? How are they combating runs? What types of runs are hitting? So it's a blanket statement of these guys aren't good at X or these guys are great at this. You really want to get to the nuts and bolts, what leads to those statistics. I've got a firm belief in analytics and relying on them to point you in the right direction of what you need to study. We have Eric Eager upstairs, and every Monday, me and Dave meet with him, and he gives us great information. And he gives us the highlights. Pete Carroll always taught me, look for the 70%, right? Look for those things that are statistically showing you something. There's a tendency, whether it's self-scout or opponent scout or a success rate, that's a significant amount for you to go dive into and see what's that all about, and then let the film talk to you. That's why, fortunately, that's why we're all employed as coaches. At the end of the day, it's still a human element where you got to go watch the film and you got to figure out what kind of matchups do we have at left guard, what kind of matchups do we have at the tight end position. How do we go and attack what the defense is presenting to us? Starting with those statistics, diving into the characteristics of what they're doing, and then looking at the matchups and putting guys into the right spots to make sure that we emphasize those points throughout the week.
Awesome. And then I wanted to also ask about the quarterback room. Y'all brought in Mike White on Monday or Tuesday onto the practice squad. What kind of benefit have y'all been able to glean from him? Obviously, he played in Buffalo most recently in 2024.
Yeah, I think Dave mentioned it too. Like you'll gather any information you have. We got Denny too here and the medical staff. So if he's got any nuggets, I haven't picked that brain yet. But you really do you turn over every stone you have. Mike's been awesome in the couple days we've gotten to know him. Beyond Buffalo, he's played a lot of ball, and it comes off right away where he comes from being home down in Florida to, okay, let's jump back in. And I'm like, hey, did you miss having QB Indy every day, getting routes on air and doing all? And he's like, yeah, I did, man. Let's hit the ground running. You could tell this guy, he's been thirsty to get back into a quarterback room, play ball, and then engaging in the conversations that we're having about the game plan as he's learning our language. It's been fun. It's been fun, and it's always fun to get a new perspective in the room to make sure that we're staying grounded in what's going on around the league, past just in our little bubble. Because sometimes you can get wrapped up in what we're doing, the things that we're seeing. But anytime you bring in another body, any position, it's fun to pick their brain and see, okay, how are they doing it somewhere else?
Great. Thanks, man.
Yep.
Joe Person, followed by Cass.
Brad, as long as Bryce is working on the side, do you have to go into this thinking that Andy's going to be the starter and preparing him that way?
We're pushing Bryce every day. He's pushing himself. So he's right there alongside of us. When we're in team periods and all that, he's doing the rehab he needs to do. We're making sure that we're separating those things out so he's not missing the football, the game plan piece. But yeah, absolutely. Anytime you deal with an injury, you want to make sure that the guy, the potential replacement, is getting the physical reps needed, to hit the ground running when he's ready to go. So I think in a given week too, when Bryce is the starter, go back to last week, and then Andy gets thrust into the game, his engagement with the material all week last week allows him to come into the game and make some crucial plays down the stretch to solidify that win for us. So I don't think there's a change in their mentality, other than they have different problems, different circumstances that they got to kind of handle. So Bryce is handling kind of twofold: his injury and making sure that he's getting healthy and pushing the envelope on the timetable of his recovery. But then also when the football stuff is going, he's right there. He's behind the huddle, making sure that he's fully engaged in snap time, motion timing, snap counts, alert checks and all the mental pieces that he would need once he is physically ready to go.
You mentioned Andy's engagement in last week's game. He's also got, 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
Where do you see that most show up in a week like this when he's kind of thrust into the ones, at least as of now?
It's funny when you got a guy who's been around that long, there's like a natural saying is, I got a clip for that. When a defense is presenting something, when we're attacking something, we're presenting a concept or saying, hey, like we want to hit this void in zone, or this is a great play versus man. I got a clip for that back in whatever year. Experienced that first when I was helping out in Seattle. We brought Greg Olson in, and he was the king of I got a clip for that. You have a Hall of Fame career at tight end, and he had a really quick list of, oh, you want to run that route? Let me show you a nice little highlight reel of myself doing that in Carolina. So I think Andy's another kind of walking example of that. He's played a lot of ball, and anytime you play at the quarterback position and where the bones are buried on concepts, he's got a great memory of pulling back from his bank of football playing days, right? Whether it's Cincinnati here, Dallas, New Orleans, all these different spots. And he helps us prepare the other guys by showing him his experiences, and kind of ramps up the speed of their understanding of what we're trying to get done by just saying, hey, here's what this similar thing happened to me back when. And then when Andy gets to play, like he gets to rest on those experiences, and he knows where he wants to go versus certain coverages, and he plays fast.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Brad, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, Cassidy?
Good. You've also got Sam Martin.
Absolutely. I gotta get the punter's brain. I don't know how many defensive meetings he was in, but maybe there's something out there.
You never know.
NFC Player of the Week too, by the way.
That's right. That's 3 in a row.
Little tip of the cap.
Yeah. When this Bills defense adds a guy like Joey Bosa, what does he kind of change about their front? How does that change how you have to prepare for them?
Yeah, you talk about Andy and his experience. Joey's played a lot of ball, and it comes through. He is very disciplined in the way he plays. He's very physical and stout on the edge, and then he's got a nice tool bag of rush moves when he needs to turn it on. So anytime you're reading him on the edge, you got to be wary of him trying to lull you to sleep, all right, and then crashing on a run. We got to be really physical with him at the tight end position when we're running our zone schemes and putting them on man blocks with him. And then just knowing, in the pass game, when it is a passing situation, this guy's got a big tool belt, and they got a great pass rush tape. I'm sure they're going over the next couple days with Joe Gilbert in the O-line room. But, yeah, Joey Bosa's got a lot of tools to work with and good physicality to back it up.
And then Rico joked the other night after the game that his dream scenario would be like triple option with him, Chuba, and Trevor all on the field at the same time. I doubt that happens, but
put it in. Come on. Tracy's saying, put it in. What are we doing?
Run the wishbone every day. What are the possibilities that you can really start to get into now that you've got all 3 guys kind of clicking along at what they're able to do?
Yeah, you want to continue to get them touches in different ways. You want them, to get a rhythm. So getting enough touches is a big thing. And unfortunately, when you're a third back, that you kind of lose some of that, and you get spot plays to make sure that you're continuing to stay engaged in the game, but then also get to showcase your talent and keep the other guys fresh. But then, yeah, we've flirted with the pony package. I know, Mike, you might highlight that one again on Twitter every time I mention pony. 12, 13 personnel. I think that's what he might want to steer towards as far as featuring different personnel groups. But yeah, anytime you get both those backs on the field, it's a great threat to the defense, just as it is with our other personnels. We start to highlight shots down the field and bigger personnels, but also our run game coming to life in general, and just making sure that we talked about what the defense is presenting us. When those opportunities come up, having a long line of great players at every skill position allows us to say, okay, this is a week where 10 personnel looks good. This is a week where putting both backs out there will do us some good. And then you want to continue to get those guys in a rhythm. So cycling them in and out in certain plays, giving them certain tags to make sure that Jimmy gets in the game and Jalen Coker gets in the game and Trevor gets some touches as well, because he did some great things with the ball last week. that's imperative, and that's on us as coaches to make sure that we handle that the right way.
We have time for a couple more. We'll go with Kevin Tolbert, followed by Mike Kay.
When you look at Bryce's situation in particular, a lot of these guys are so competitive. You know, they want to push themselves to get back in the mix as soon as possible. But how do you balance that? How do you weigh that with trying to get them back maybe just for 1 week with the possibility, if the injury gets worse, the long-term plan for the season? How do you guys know it, and how significant is that of a challenge right now?
It's a great challenge, and I think it starts with bringing the right guys in the building that you got to pull them back, right? You want to protect them from themselves, but that means they're attacking in nature. They want to get back. They're fighting, scratching, clawing. We have a number of guys, that working in the training room right now. David Moore, Robert Hunt. You watch those guys. Jalen Coker just got back. In the last couple weeks, they're scratching and clawing to get back on the field, and we want that. And then we rely on the experts we have. You mentioned Denny already. We rely on the advice that they give us, the doctors that we have that they give us, to make sure that when they're playing, they're not playing with that in the back of their mind at all. Because that's usually when you get hurt. That's usually when a small injury and you're taking a little bit of a risk becomes a larger injury because they're playing with hesitation. So if there's any hesitation in their game, we'll rely on the next guy up mentality. And that's why we train all our guys from top to bottom. So we're not missing a step. We're not taking a step down when those situations come up.
Brad, I know it's not universal right now, but there are a lot of older quarterbacks having a lot of success. Obviously, Joe Flacco was here for joint practices. We saw that. Flacco and Andy have had somewhat comparable last few years, backups, getting playing time, all that stuff. Why do you think that we are seeing, obviously Aaron Rodgers and Stafford have always had that kind of linear success, but why do you think guys who are older at that position are still able to kind of be productive when called upon, even if it's in spot duty?
Yeah, I think for one, like you thrust Joe Flacco into a new situation in Cincinnati, and there's an element of not surprise, but he can rest on the plays that he has, give them to the coach, and then have great skills around him. So as long as you're developing the full scheme and the attack that's appropriate for the given week, those guys with experience don't necessarily need the physical reps during a practice week, because like we talked with Andy, like they've already done similar things in their past through their years of experience. So that's where I feel like the plug and play comes up with some of these vet guys, where you don't necessarily need 5 reps in a practice week to understand what we're trying to accomplish. If we just say, hey, this is similar to, here's 2020, when you did a similar concept, you attacked the same thing, put that in your brain when you're going through this play, that they can kind of pick up the slack in that regard.
And since you brought up Pony, wanted to ask you, Trevor Etienne, how can he affect the pass and the run, maybe not similarly to Jimmy Horn, but allow you to do a little bit of different things in packages?
Yeah, he does a great job, catching the ball out of the backfield, running his gun runs have been really good. There was a couple weeks ago, right, really patient and almost finished through the goal line on one of our gun runs down there on a crucial down. But for him, it's just he's unfortunately not going to get those physical reps of our core runs all of the time, because we have 2 guys that are taking the bulk of the carries. So for him, it's just owning that role. Those plays where he's tagged, those plays where we're saying, hey, here's a screen, we might get the ball out to you. Here's a check down that we think might hit when we're calling a play pass. Just owning the details in that and watching his role expand and being ready for, hey, when an opportunity comes up, if something happens to someone else, you just have to be ready. And I think, as we transition to Tracy here in a few minutes, you watch Trevor own those roles, take all the pre-practice time to catch punts, and that thing came alive last week. He made some big plays for us on special teams, whatever that role may be. Those guys, capturing the current role, but then also preparing themselves for more. Trevor's done a great job at that.